It's our 2022 NHL free agency preview. It's coming your way. The Sabres options in goal. Some of the big names don't pertain to them, and a couple of moves that they made on Tuesday ahead of free agency. It's all ahead in the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Jordan, it's a fun one. Free agency preview. Easy one.
It should be fun, but it seems like the Sabres are not all that interested in much.
Well, maybe they are. Maybe they are. We'll see, because I'm more open to them being a little bit of a spender this year than I have in past seasons. But we'll preview what's to come for the Sabres in terms of their goalie options, maybe some other free agency stuff. They did make a couple of moves on Tuesday that we will talk about. And then also some of the big hitters around the league that are going to hit the market. Johnny Gaudreau, Evgeny Malkin, Andre Palat, we're just finding out about. There's a lot of big names this year in free agency that we'll talk about coming up in a little bit here. I'm at Sneaky Joe Sports on Twitter, and Jordan is at JR Hansgen. If you want to shoot us a follow, and be sure to like and subscribe us on our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. We'll start with the moves the Sabres made on Tuesday, beginning with the Hino Hive. It's back. The Sabres re-signed Vinnie Hinostroza, 1 year, $1.7 million. Jordan, I know you're a fan of the move, given that it's not that much money and a player that's he's likable.
Yeah, I like Vinnie. I thought he's one of those guys that, like, you pay a performer, right? You bring a performer back. Like, I thought, like, given what his contract was with us last year, like, I thought he performed a lot better than that, and I think that, you know, it's a win-win for both sides. Vinnie Hinostroza gets to be in a position where he can play in the NHL and get opportunities. And the Sabres get a player who it seems that they very much like. So win-win for both sides, and the Hina Hive gets to keep on buzzing around for another year.
13 goals, 12 assists for Hinostroza last year, 25 points in 62 games. This is a good depth bottom six winger. I think the questions you'd have about the signing are maybe less about the player, because it's not much cost, and it's a player that I think everyone agrees is at least fairly good, especially for the role that he plays. The bigger question about the signing and whether or not you should have done it is, are you blocking out the kids? Because as it stands today, just to quickly rattle off 12 names that are already penciled in. I just want to say penciled in, not ink, but penciled in for the opening night lineup. You have Tage, Tuck, Skinner, Cousins, Krebs, Olofsson, Middlestat, Quinn, Hinostroza, Asplund, Okposo, Girgensons, Bjork. That's 13 names. That's not counting anything else they might do. And that's not counting J.J. Peterka. And that's the point. If you want J.J. Peterka to have an opportunity to make the team, this makes it a little bit harder for him.
You included Quinn on the 13. You rattled him off fast.
I did. I did include Quinn. I would be stunned if he was not in the opening night lineup.
Yeah.
I think he was so good in the AHL that he almost has to.
Doesn't it seem like one of those things, though, like Peterka's he's got to earn it. He's got to beat one of those guys out.
Well, here's my question. Last year, the story was he did earn it. Last year, the talk of camp was Peterka earned a spot, but they knew they were going to send him down anyway, so they just did it at the beginning of the season. My question to the Sabres would be, if J.J. Peterka has the exact same camp and preseason he had last year, is he playing for your opening night? I'd like to say the answer is yes, but I'm not sure.
And if you're asking, why did they send him down if he deserved to make it last year? Probably so he could have development with Quinn, right?
and I think they wanted a full season just in one place and like get used to Rochester right away.
Okay, so that too. But wouldn't you expect them to graduate together? And also like if they're trading for guys, I mean, where we hinted at it pre-show. But like if they were trying to trade for somebody's got to go, right? They're not just going to be able to trade. Sabres aren't going to be in a position where they want to trade draft picks. So somebody's going to go for one of these guys. So I mean, we'll see where all the dominoes fall. It's still early in the offseason. We haven't even started this free agency thing yet. So I wouldn't get too stressed about it.
The other move the Sabres made on Tuesday, they re-signed goaltender Malkin Subban to a 1-year deal worth the veteran minimum $800,000 to two-way contract so he can go to the AHL. And honestly, Jordan, I mean, he played, 2 games for the Sabres, and he's been more of an AHL guy the past couple of seasons. I guess he's the Amerks. He's one of the Amerks goalies to start the year.
Yeah, I think he's fine for organizational depth. Like, I like him.
Yeah, maybe help his brother get into the organization too. Put in a good word.
I was thinking about that too. Like, would it be like, hey, this is a cool place to be, PK?
Yeah.
Maybe hang out here for a little bit. Yeah, like I like Malkin Subban. I'm fine with that.
Me too. Depth, he's going to be the 4th goaltender probably, because you'd think Luukkonen's the starter in Rochester, and Subban will be his 1B, and they'll bring in someone else to pair with Anderson at the NHL level to start. I think that's what'll happen, and that would mean that Subban's the number 4. And
Malcolm
as my number
Subban
4
plays for the Sabres in the regular season at all. What?
Injuries,
Where are
right?
we at?
Injuries.
DEFCON what?
DEFCON, is it what is that? Is that the lower number is worse or the higher number is worse?
I don't know if it's tornadoes or like hurricanes or I don't know.
No, but is DEFCON 5 worse than DEFCON 4 or 1? Okay,
I have no idea.
Code red, and then this
the code red at that point.
And then one other Sabre subject is the James Van Riemsdyk hypothetical that was put out there by Elliot Friedman. In fact, it was more than a hypothetical. It was a report that Philadelphia is trying to offload the final year of that JVR contract, 1 year, $7 million. He scored 24 goals last year, only 13 assists, so not a lot of points and not a lot of two-way game. I mean, he was just kind of camping in front of the net and shoveling some pucks home. But he did. It's very one-dimensional at this point, but he did. 1 year left, $7 million. And Friedman did mention the Sabres by name as one of the teams, along with Arizona and Seattle, that are interested in this idea. So I'll ask you this question. Is that, at what price would you take JVR? Would it have to be, I saw Anthony Chandra from Expected Buffalo, very, strong on his take that I would need a first-round pick for this. That's a lot of money. And also, you know what? Philly, I don't need to help you get Johnny Gaudreau. So you got to pay up if you want to send me JVR. What would your take be on that idea for the Sabres?
I mean, if you're going to tell me that we would get a guy that scored 24 goals and a first for taking on money for a year, like I'd sign me up for that. Like that makes all the sense in the world. Like this is not like Matt Murray, who's like literally like JVR. I mean, he's not as good as what he was before, but he's still he's better than most of our bottom 6. So like
that's right. It would be another guy. It would be another guy though that you'd probably put in the opening night lineup though, wouldn't it?
Sure.
Are we okay with that? I think maybe there's room for one more forward. And if that's him, okay. If I'm getting a second-round pick or a first-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, but it is one of those things. I guess the question is like, what does Kevin Adams want out of the season, right? Mm-hmm. And his thing, his mantra has been patience, 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 patience. So I think that on one hand, the Sabres getting another asset fits into patience, right? But playing James Van Riemsdyk does not fit into that. That sounds like a move that's somebody going for a Stanley Cup playoff berth. Yeah. It does seem like one of those things where it could be like win-win. Like you can do a little bit of both. Like still hope for the future. I mean, you're right. The one downside is it's another spot JJ Peterka has to find like but really like you could just scratch like Bjork and even Hinostroza.
Oh yeah,
if you wanted to.
that's true. That's true. They'll probably end up scratching a couple of them if he earns it.
Somebody's gonna get hurt too. Somebody always
listen. The 0506 Sabres, Jason Pominville didn't start the season on the team. By the way, he was a second-round prospect at that point in time. Midway through the year, he earned a spot. It's like, all right, remember what they did? They started scratching Taylor Pyatt, who was like a veteran.
Last year, the Sabres did not have the full lineup like ever. Like somebody was out.
That's right. They had a bad injury luck last year. For sure.
Yeah, and I think that the way that it seems like that's just the way it is in hockey. Like most years are like that, where you're got guys in and out. Right. So I don't think adding James and Riemsdyk totally means like there will never be an opportunity for Peterka to make it or anything like that.
Right.
But it sounds like the other teams that are like willing to offer cap are all in on this too. So it's just a matter of who gets what.
Those damn Yotes. They're always to this game. Taking on salary.
Does Van Riemsdyk, real quick, does he have one of those no trades?
Squat. He's got nothing.
Thanks for you, buddy.
You could buy him out too.
Buffalo or Arizona State.
Right. You could take the contract from Philly and just buy him out. It's 4.3 this year and 1.3 next year if you do that. So they'd have options. It's not like they'd even have to play him. If they'd say, hey, dude doesn't seem all that interested in being here, just buy him out. Who cares?
You want that though?
Well, it's a free draft pick.
The Leafs get him for like $800K.
But if I get a second round pick out of it, that's fine. Good. Worth it. I'd say.
That's true.
I know what you mean though. I don't need to help Philly and Toronto and Boston in these teams. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of the non-Sabre free agents, the big names that are going to hit the market, and then goalie options. It is getting slim pickings for the Sabres in net. We'll go through some of the remaining options later on in the show. We are brought to you by BetOnline, your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer, Gareth Bale for LAFC. You want to bet on El Tráfico? Go to betonline.net. Your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, scores. They got everything you need. MMA, boxing, golf with the Open Championship this week. Saw Tiger Woods, the most bet on golfer in this week's tournament, which is crazy to me.
He's good at that course. He's
great at that call. How good is he at that course with one leg, though? Can you answer me that question?
The problem is that, like, I think if the wind's not going up, everybody's going to be great at that course.
Oh, I need some bad weather at St. Andrews, right?
You need it. Otherwise, the course is just at the mercy of the players.
Right. It's the charm of Scotland and the course. The dreary weather.
I love it so much.
Anyways, bet on St. Andrews this week, bet on the Open Championship, and even if you're just looking for different information on the tournaments and event, I do that all the time for content on my shows, WGR. Head over to BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joe DiBiase, Jordan Hansgen on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe the show on our YouTube channel. We now go into the big names for free agency, and I would really consider these to be the biggest names and the names that the Sabres are just not in the ballgame on. Don't consider them likely at all, not even to be like making a call, for instance. Players we know are going to test the open market. Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny Hockey, he's going to the market and he's leaving. Gaudreau's agent tells Elliot Friedman, the Flames did all they could. This was a decision about family. And the Flames have now put out a statement, Brad Treleving, their GM, wishing Gaudreau the best and thanking him for his time in the organization. So he gone. And it sounds like, especially when they're citing family, he wants to go home. Home is New Jersey, kind of close to both Philadelphia and where the Devils play, and even where the Islanders play. I think those are the three teams that are in on this. And I guess who makes the most sense? Because all three were kind of bad last year.
And the Rangers probably can't do it.
Yeah, they don't have the money.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, 3 very old school people, 3 very old school coaches.
Yep.
This makes me laugh. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I think that he could go any which way. I think Lee makes the most sense. Like, they're gonna be their owner said it himself. Like, we're the Flyers. We don't rebuild. Like, so whether I mean, that could be a disaster. But it does seem like they're the type of team that's trying to build their team in an image that is like they're still trying to add talent. Whether or not you like those moves is besides the point. Like, they're going for it. Whereas, but then, like, or does he want to go with like the young? The Devils are interesting. Like, they're bad, but they're not like, they're kind of exciting because they're a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess you could go either way with that. I don't know. I wouldn't want to go with the Islanders. Seem like they're like down.
Yeah, and they seem like they're going in the wrong direction. I think the Devils honestly make the most sense. The Devils can pay the most, and they are kind of young and up and coming. Him and Jack Hughes would be really interesting because they're like the same type of player. Gaudreau is obviously way better at this point. But the Devils can pay the most. They're up and coming. Philly, if they don't get rid of that Van Riemsdyk contract, and there was a report this afternoon that at the moment, they don't want to pay the price that it will take to get rid of him. If that's the case, they don't have the space to pay Gaudreau. They have to get rid of JVR if they want to pay Gaudreau. And that's where a team like the Sabres could maybe step in and say, like, all right, like kind of reap on that desperation from the Philadelphia Flyers. So that's what's going on with Gaudreau. I'm distracted as I'm talking because literally as we're recording, there it is. The Penguins have re-signed Evgeny Malkin. It's a 4-year contract. So Malkin got his way. He played hardball. The report was that he ended contract negotiations with Pittsburgh when they would not go to a 4th year. And here they are going to a 4th year. So Gino stays in Pittsburgh. I had him on the list of guys that we would talk about testing the open market. I liked Washington for him, playing with Ovechkin. Nicholas Backstrom's going to be on long-term IR. But Malkin, I mean, how old is he? This probably means he ends his career with the Penguins. 35 years old.
It's one of those moves where it's like, is it best for the organization? Is it best for the Penguins to give him that contract? No. But they probably just can't imagine seeing him playing for like the Capitals.
Right.
Like,
it's a legacy contract.
We just can't let that happen.
Right. It's $6.1 million per year. That's not a lot. That is not a lot for what I thought he could command. But so I guess there was some wiggle room on both sides. Pittsburgh was willing to go to meet him on the term, and maybe Malkin was willing to take less to help them, stay competitive. They signed Rickard Rakell, so that probably factored into that as well. I good for Pittsburgh. I know why they did it. I kind of wanted to see him away from Crosby, just once. Just wanted to see him away from Crosby, kind of, escape that shadow.
Yeah.
But I guess he's been so good throughout his career that might be more of a narrative than anything. It's not really a thing,
He had those moments where, like, when Crosby was injured, that he was like carrying the team on his back. Like, I think everybody knows Evgeny Malkin has been a great player. Like, he's kind of like Dwayne Wade, right? Like, it's like great player playing with another great. Like, it's just is what it is.
He that year you mentioned that Crosby was hurt. That was the 2011-12 season. Crosby only played. Actually, Crosby didn't play that year. Did he miss the whole year? No, there he is. 22 games. Crosby played 22 games. Malkin won MVP. Like, the year Crosby wasn't on the ice, Malkin was the MVP of the sport. So I think you're right. He's going to go down as one of the greats of all time, regardless of playing with 87 his whole career or not. Okay, so Malkin off the list of potential free agents that'll hit the market. So we've got Gaudreau. How about Andre Palat? He will test the open market. Is that kind of the guy you feel like is he the most likely to get a big contract that the team will regret? Doesn't he kind of fit that bill? Because he's 31. He's coming from a team where it might have been more about what was around him than necessarily him himself. I don't know. I feel like I could see Palat getting overpaid by an average team and that average team regretting it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I could see that. He's always been one of those guys where in the playoffs, I'm like, man, this guy is really good. Like I would always like watch him, and I'd be like, he'd always be noticeable for the Lightning. I'd be like, really, that Andre Palat is that good? But yeah, like I get it. Like, can he be like the star of a team? Probably not. So I guess in that regard, like, I don't think he's gonna be like Ville Leno. Like, he's not that. He's a pretty good player. He'd be like Brad Richards, where it's like, all right, he's decent, he's useful, but
right. That went south pretty quickly, didn't it? Richards in New York.
Well, I think that hurt. He gets hurt.
Same age. That's right. Okay, so Palat will hit the open market, and then there's two big name goaltenders, Jack Campbell and Darcy Kemper. I almost hesitate to even want to talk about these guys because I think we kind of know where they're going. It's kind of the worst kept secret in hockey that Campbell and the Oilers already have a deal worked out. Like, that one's getting announced at 12:01 on Wednesday afternoon. So I guess the deal sounds like, from what Friedman said, he thinks it's 5 years, $5 million per year. Do you like that deal for Edmonton? He's had 2 good years in Toronto, but only 2 good years. And the Oilers, they've always needed a goaltender, right? And they'd hope that this is their answer.
Does Edmonton like draft any goalies, or do they just like?
That's a great question.
I just wonder, like, what is their goaltending prospect pool look like?
There can't be one. There just can't be.
I know, right? Doesn't it just feel like that? Like, Edmonton just like literally lives in this, like, I'm just gonna draft, or I'm just gonna take 27-year-olds from other teams in perpetuity and hope that one of them somehow is good at the same time that we are. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I guess it's like a fine move for them, but it just feels like the same thing of that endless carousel. They have Cam Talbot at one point, or like they had, what's that other guy's name?
Mike Smith.
Devin Dubnyk was the Oiler.
Dubnyk was there. Koskinen they brought over from Europe.
Koskinen. Yeah. So the ride never ends. And then you were talking. Then the other one was Avalanche guy,
Darcy Kemper. So Kemper, it sounds like Washington is the favorite, and that makes sense because Washington probably thinks they're getting him in that they traded both. Well, they got rid of both their goaltenders in 2 days. They traded Vitek Vanecek to the Devils, and then they decided not to qualify Ilya Samsonov. We'll talk more about him from a Sabre perspective in a second. But what do you make of Washington just starting over in net and just deciding to pay the Stanley Cup champions starting netminder?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm surprised that they just like bailed on Samsonov. That was the interesting thing to me, is that, like, does it hurt that bad to give somebody a qualifying offer? Like, is that really eating your bank account that bad?
Yeah.
So like I think giving that away for free and not getting any compensation for anybody trying to pick him up, I thought that was it might be telling to what they think of him. So like, who would know better than the Caps? And Darcy Kemper's like, he's not the surest thing in that. I mean, he's a Stanley Cup champion, so you can't take that away from him. But it's like, did the Avalanche win because of Darcy Kemper, or do they win in spite of Darcy Kemper?
Mm-hmm. Samsonov being a first-round pick of the Capitals once upon a time, it is interesting for sure. They didn't want to even see it out before he played his 100th game. He hasn't even played 100 games for them yet, and like they're done with it. But we'll talk about him in a little bit. There's some other stuff with Samsonov. Okay, so those are the big names that are going to hit the market. Nazem Kadri, the only thing on him right now is that he's going to accept a meeting from everybody. He wants to hear from every team that's interested.
Get him in there, Kevin.
Yeah, with Kadri, he just just go hang out. Don't even make an offer. Just be like, hey, what's up?
I think he would fit. I think he like. I kind of like Kadri.
Yeah. All right, so let's take a timeout here and let's talk about some goalie options because it's getting there are fewer and fewer options as the days go on. And there were 2 guys that were on the move today, on Tuesday, that you can cross off the list that's available to the Sabres on Wednesday. That's coming up here in the Lockdown Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by Athletic Greens. I got the drops I put in my water every morning. It's how I get my vitamins and my nutrients. You could do the shakes too. They're really good and very healthy as well. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Check out AG1. And again, there's a multitude of ways to include AG1 in your diet. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. Supports better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. Costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Athletic Greens, over 7,000 5-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes and trusted by the leading health experts. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take advantage and ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Joe DiBiase, Jordan Hansgen on the Lockdown Sabres podcast. All right, we've got to find a goaltender. It is the biggest hole on the Sabres roster right now. We don't know who is starting opening night. We know Craig Anderson's one of the 2. We know Luukkonen can earn his way onto the team, whether that be at the beginning of the year or at some point during the year. He probably gets some games in, and now we know that Subban is going to be another depth piece in Rochester. But who is the missing piece? Let's cross some more names off the list. How many guys have been crossed off the list? Vitek Vanacek, gone. Ville Husso to Detroit, gone. You've got Braden Holtby announcing that he's not going to play next year and might have to retire due to a lingering injury. So Holtby, cross him off the list. Today, you had Matt Murray get traded to Toronto, who had already told the Sabres, I ain't coming. Cross Murray off the list. You had Cam Talbot get traded from Minnesota to Ottawa. Cross him off the list. It's getting to a point now, Jordan, where I'm really wondering if they're just going to get stuck with some other team's backup that's really underwhelming, because that's kind of what the market is right now. But the one name that we'll mention at the top here that we'll talk about before other options, the one guy that's not like that, that's a little bit different, is Ilya Samsonov, who we just discussed, got let go for nothing in Washington. The production has not been there. Through three seasons, it has not been there. I actually tweeted a stat out this afternoon that in the last 5 years, 62 goalies have played at least 82 games. And I'll put up the stat on our YouTube page so you could see it. These are the worst goalies in the league the last 5 years. Dead last, Martin Jones. He's a free agent. Second last, Jonas Korpisalo. 60th out of 62 is Craig Anderson. 58th out of 62 is Malcolm Subban. And Ilya Samsonov is 56th. The production is not there. But Jordan, I think why this might be intriguing is you know what Malcolm Subban is. You know what Craig Anderson is. You don't really know what Samsonov is because first-round talent, still only 25 years old, and he has not even played 100 games yet in the league.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, why is that better than Luukkonen?
It's a good question. I mean, he stays healthier, I guess, is the only difference.
I really think, like, at this point, now that all the fish that you even tried or didn't try to reel in are gone, I think this is the point where it's like, well, like, I'll bring it to quarterbacks, like, time to see what Daniel Jones can do. Like, it's time to see what Luukkonen can do. Like,
right, just throw him into the deep end and watch him swim.
Yes, right. Like, now I get it. Like, you are you doing a disservice to the kid? Like, I bet Luukkonen would be like, yeah, let me throw me in the deep end. Let me see if I can swim. Like,
yeah.
Because he's probably looking over his shoulder and seeing Portillo and Levi and being like, I need to get this team now.
And Topias Leinonen now. They drafted another one.
I mean, the Sabres just keep stockpiling these guys, which I kind of like. I mean, just get as many lottery tickets as you can get. But like, yeah, like it doesn't it just seem like that just is the most logical solution?
I'm getting there too. I am getting there too. I don't think that's what they'll do. They might have to though. They might not find a dance partner. Adams might want to add above Anderson and just not find someone to do it with.
I might want to add Samsonov just because Craig Anderson played like half the season last year.
Right.
Like, you might want to just have another goalie in the system anyways.
That's right. So other options if it's not Samsonov. By the way, the one other thing that's a little tricky with him is there's been internal discipline in Washington with him a couple of times. He was one of those Capitals players that got suspended for breaking COVID policy early on in the pandemic. But then also later that year, near the playoffs, he got suspended by the team and missed the start of their playoff run because he was showing up late to meetings, like repeatedly, and like falling asleep in the meetings. Like there was, I guess, some behind the scenes stuff that maybe wasn't so great with him. The one thing I will say though is the Sabres would know better than anybody whether or not that's correctable or they could keep him in line or even mentor him with Craig Anderson. Because remember, Craig Anderson was in Washington for a full season with Samsonov. So they just got to ask Anderson. That's it. And if he gives him the green light, then I think you do it. If he says, dude, you don't want this kid, then you pass. Right.
You see that Donnie Meatballs speech at a U.S. development camp?
It was really good.
Nobody's falling asleep during that.
Yeah.
Everybody's listening to that guy.
Right. Okay, so Samsonov is one idea. What are some others? Mikko Koskinen. Actually, I could probably cross him off the list. I think he's returning to Europe. You've got Martin Jones. But that's the worst production in the league the last 5 years. Just put the stat up. I think, who could be realistic? And this isn't a very appealing idea. Thomas Greiss, like career backup. Yaroslav Halak, but the reunion tour, Halak on the Sabres.
What was it, 3 days? 3 days?
3 days. It was less than that, maybe. It was like one practice and one sitting in the stands as a backup. He was good, but he only played 20 games last year for Vancouver, and he's 37. But, I mean, as a one-year stopgap, that's about as good as you're getting. David Rittich is another one who's, again, a career backup, played last year for Nashville in 17 games, 86 save percentage. I mean, again, I'm telling you, free agency, there's not much. The one avenue they might have is trade. Do they want to go after Jake Allen and try to pry him out of Montreal or call up Mike Greer? Because the Sharks have 3 NHL goaltenders. They have Kaapo Kakkonen, they have James Reimer, and they have Aiden Hill. I think they just got Kakkonen, so I don't think he's available, but go for Hill or Reimer. I think maybe the Sharks might be the best trade option because they're definitely trading somebody. Montreal, when you don't know what's happening with Carey Price, do they really want to trade Jake Allen? I'm a little hesitant on that. But San Jose, like, they're going to trade somebody. So Reimer, right? Like Reimer, that might be as good as you're going to get at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, but even then, like, is that what we want? Like, do you want that?
It's an upgrade. Do you want to go bigger? What do you want? Like, what would you want them to do at this point? Do you want John Gibson?
I honestly just want to see what Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen can do.
That's right. You said that. That's right.
Yeah, like, I really think, like, that's the best solution here. Like, and if he's great. Right? And if he's not good, well, you can easily tell Devin Levi, hey, your team now. Like, we don't need to, like, there's a lot that we could do with that. Whereas, like, James Reimer just seems like, I don't think we're making the playoffs with James Reimer in that. Like, I don't think that's
probably not.
Maybe. I mean,
probably
yeah, you're
not.
right. It's like more sure than Luukkonen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, I don't know. Like,
one other guy I'll throw out there as an option, Eric Comrie, who has played a very limited sample size. He's only played 28 games in the NHL. He did play 19 of them last year for Winnipeg as Connor Hellebuck's backup, and he had a .920 save percentage, which was one of the better marks in the NHL in the limited action that Comrie saw. And he's 27. He's younger than most of these guys. He shouldn't cost you more than a couple of years. Probably not even that, and low money because he's hardly played. I kind of like him as a shot in the dark, just because of the unknown factor. If they are going to do something, I kind of like you though. I'm falling for the idea of just throw Luukkonen in. But if they want,
could you get like Ullmark back?
Did you see my tweet? I'm in on that. I
Because
love that idea.
He's not going to want to be a backup.
No, and I think he'll probably split time with Swayman. But Boston probably wishes they could have that $5 million for something else.
I'm sure.
That actually idea would be perfect if he just hadn't played for the Sabres before. Because
the term kind of stinks. Like
for Boston, it does. The Sabres don't. 3 years is kind of perfect, isn't it? It's not perfect.
Yeah, I guess,
maybe two is perfect.
You're thinking that one of those college studs are going to have to go to Rochester for a year, right?
Right. So yeah. So I think 3 years is fine, and $5 million is fine. And Boston, they've got $2 million in cap space, and Bergeron's not under contract. David Krejci's coming back. They need money for him. They reportedly want to chase Kadri. Like, you need money. What's one way to get money? Why don't you give us Ullmark back to take these backseat on the $5 million when you're Swayman? I mean, you had a strong rookie season. You're going to probably have him be the 1A anyway. So I like the Ullmark idea. It's just the only holdup is it's just weird that a guy would sign somewhere else.
Would Ullmark want that?
The only thing I'll say on that real quick before we wrap, he did sound very open to the idea of staying when he left. It wasn't like Reinhart and Eichel and Ristolainen. It was a different tone. Ullmark even kind of said it both in his Instagram goodbye message and in this press conference when he first got to Boston, was if the Sabres had either offered the same money or maybe a little bit above, like, he was very open to staying here. So it's kind of like if he gets the money and he was open to going back to Buffalo, would he have a problem with it? Maybe not. So I don't think it's realistic because it's weird, but I love the idea. I don't think you'll do better than him. You will not do better than him if you're going to add someone.
No, and that's an actual starting caliber goalie.
Yes.
Besides the rest of these guys, maybe Reimer's the closest that's realistic. But even then, that's not going to make me jump for joy and express my we're going to the playoffs, baby. Yeah. I don't think I see that.
All right. We'll see what the Sabres do in goal, defense, PK Subban, whatever it might be. Wednesday is free agency. We'll talk about it after we see what Wednesday brings. Goudreau, Palat, with these goalies and what the Sabres will do is all ahead.
Last thing. How quick are we going to get decisions by these people? Is Wednesday going to be the trade deadline day where we get nothing?
12.
Or is it going to be or is it going to? Yeah, I think so too.
I think
free agency is usually insanity quick.
I think there's going to be a flood of news.
Because they've probably already been talking to everybody. We've already heard.
Oh, for sure.
All over the place. So
yeah, all these teams already have these deals lined up.
Tampering.
Come on, tons of tampering. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow after free agency is over. Enjoy it, and let's hope we get something fun to talk about here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase and Jordan Hansgen. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Now go make your second listen. Locked On NHL, Locked On Experts, giving you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all